Dear listeners of the Female Guides Requested podcast, Happy Wednesday and Happy Lunar New Year of the Snake. This is your host, Ting Ting from Las Vegas. Today, we have Izzy Lazarus as our guest. I've known Izzy for a while, but it wasn't until last fall that I finally got to meet her in person when she came to Red Rock for her AMGA Rock Guide Exam. I knew I had to have her on the show. Izzy grew up in New York City, playing hockey, skateboarding, and finding a connection with the ocean. Her mountain pursuits began with a pre-orientation backpacking trip in the thick Vermont woods, and she's been hooked ever since. Courses in rock and ice climbing and outdoor leadership led her to work at the Colorado Outward School after college. Izzy spent several years working multi-week climbing, mountaineering, backpacking, and backcountry skiing courses, both domestically and abroad. In 2017, she moved to the Tetons to work as an alpine and backcountry ski guide. Between Teton seasons, she traveled and worked in the Southwest Desert region and various peaks in the Northwest and Cascades. Several years later, life took her back to Vermont to work for the UVM Outdoor Programs Department and guide on the side. Izzy has a passion for adventure that is only surpassed by her love of education, teaching, building connections with people from around the world, and cooking. Izzy is a certified rock guide, assistant splitboard guide, and apprentice alpine guide. We talk about Izzy's different transitions in life, from the big city to the great outdoors, from seasonal guiding to a full-time job. We discussed what ignited these transitions, how she managed the changes, and what she learned from her experiences. Izzy always seemed to have a positive outlook on life and genuinely cares about the people around her, wanting to learn from them. Izzy's energy and positive attitude towards life are truly radiant. I had so much fun chatting with her, and I bet you are enjoying our conversation too. All right, Izzy, welcome to the Female Guides Requested podcast. I'm so excited that I finally can sit down with you and have this conversation.
Me too.
I would love that you use your words to just quickly introduce yourself for our audience.
Well, my name's Izzy Lazarus. I use she, her pronouns. And I grew up in New York City. That's where I spent the first 18 years of my life, and very much a city kid playing sports. And I come from a family that's their life. They've been in New York City since they came to the States. And my kind of guiding trajectory really started when I went to college. I went to school at the University of Vermont, and I went on an orientation program there. That was my first exposure to backpacking. But yeah, so basically from the time I went to college, that was where my life took a hard right turn. And I then went and worked for our band for a while, and that led me to a road of more technical guiding. And I've always been passionate about education and meeting people. And now I live back in Vermont, and I work at the University of Vermont. I'm in my cubicle right now, and I help run the program that was my first backpacking trip. So I'm at a circular point in my career.
I read that in your profile stories and all your crazy, gnarly, badass stories online. And I actually quite excited I share a little things with you. I also grew up in the city. Nice. And I grew up in Taipei, Taiwan. And it's like 2.5 million cities, huge. And so I'm like curious, like how, sometimes I try to find out like why I love the mountains much. So for you living in New York City, I mean, I visited New York City before, so it's like a crazy big city.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. And yeah, I mean, how that happen?
It's funny. It's like the older I get, I think the way I reflect and reflect on my childhood in New York City and how it connects to the rest of my life, and the way that I relate to New York City keeps changing. To like, if you had asked me this question when I was 18, I don't think I would have given you a very articulate answer. Been like, oh, I just wanted to. But I think the more that I understand about how my childhood functioned and growing up in New York and how that shaped me, it doesn't feel that strange to have ended up in the mountains. Like, I think, for one, there's like the navigation piece of just like when I look around and I'm like looking down a city street in Manhattan, I'm like, these are mountains, this is a valley, and you need to figure out where to go. Like, I grew up reading a subway map, and
Right.
taking the subway by myself as a young kid, and so like having the independence and then the like confidence to be making decisions, and like the awareness of like situational awareness around you. And so it's like, okay, we're talking about hazards. Like, is it people around you? Is it a train? Is it a taxi? And so I think it's like, I can draw those connections. And then ultimately, like, while I wasn't going hiking with my family and things like that, I did spend a lot of time outside. I played sports as a kid, and that's all outside. And I was just like a very movement driven kid. And actually spent a lot of time at the beach in my childhood. My mom's side of the family, we would spend the whole summer out in this place called Fire Island, which is off the south shore of Long Island. My grandfather built a house out there in the late 50s when it was like super cheap to buy land. And I could talk for a long time about what that place is like, but it's a really unique, small community. There's no cars or anything like that on it. But I pretty much lived the entire summer barefoot and in the ocean. And so for me, that was my happy place, was being out like there in that environment. And so when it came time to deciding where to go to college, I was like, well, I want to spend time outside. I'm very happy at the beach. And I'd always been curious about actually the mountains. So I feel like there was parts of growing up in New York City that I think prepared me to then have a life in the mountains with all that, like, I think independence and navigation, and you're just like constantly assessing the world around you. And my parents just really encouraged me, I think, in the like, you see everything in New York, and maybe like outdoor recreation as a career isn't one of them, but my parents were not so linear in what they thought I could do with my life, and so I was encouraged in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying that when you grow up, it will not fall into, say, the outside setting. You could play a lot, either just at your own vacation or your sports. So you really enjoy playing outside.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, the first time I ever camped in the woods was when I was 18 years old, but that wasn't like the first time that I had exposure to adventure or like diving into an unknown place and things like that, which I feel like are all elements of what I do now. It's just the backdrop's slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you mentioned, the first thing you mentioned is the navigation.
Yeah.
that made me laugh because I think in the city though, it's harder.
Definitely. Well, when I went to Japan a few years ago, and I was in Tokyo by myself, and I literally was saying to myself, I wasn't thinking about anything to do with the mountains. I was like, Izzy, you grew up in New York City, you can do this. Like, you can navigate the train in Tokyo, you'll figure it out. And it was like, for me, that's what I fall back on, is that kind of experience. Like, okay, this is really uncomfortable, but you've been doing it your whole life. But
Right. Yeah. Because I remember one time my client asked me, so they were so nervous. So we were on this alpine rock climb, and they were so nervous. They said, "Oh, I download all the GPS track that I could find online." I was like, "Come on, this is a mountain."
Yeah.
This sound, I won't say rules, but you have mountain sense. You just like where you go up, where you go down. So this least resistant stuff.
Right. And I feel like there's that same thing that exists in the city where you're like, I'm not going to go down that street. I don't like the vibe. I'm going to go over here. This seems like a good way to go. And so, yeah, I think it's like training your brain. I think a lot about the concept of horizontal learning right? So it's
Horizontal learning.
horizontal learning.
Okay.
So instead of trying to say, I'm going to teach you something completely new, like you've never climbed a mountain, so everything we're going to learn is new. It's more of to say, what does Ting Ting already know how to do, and how do we get her to understand that that actually applies over here as well? And
Nice.
so it's like, okay, you know how to navigate a city? This is what we're doing over here in the mountains. It's just like that. And so you can like build the metaphors.
Right.
So
I
I feel
love the
like,
power of metaphors. Yes.
yeah, I thought that's my entire life is just coming up with random metaphors for people and myself.
But I think that's a strong tool. So you got to like start from people's existing experience, and then you
Exactly.
actually everything should share some sort of similarity, I think.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah.
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 Great. And then you also mentioned that your parents moved to the States. So your parents were immigrants?
No, my grandparents. So I
Okay.
was just, it's my family, like they were third generation, which it's like, yeah, that's quite some time at this point. But it's to say that, like I went in the fifth grade to Ellis Island and found family names there, and they've been in New York City since. Like they didn't get further west. They've just been locked into the city there.
Okay. So you're probably the most adventurous person in your family right now,
In ways,
potentially?
I mean, in that ways, my brother is an emergency physician, and that's a whole
Okay.
different
Wow.
world. So like people think I'm intense, but I'm like, he's intense. He has the intense job. Yeah.
That's true. And then
Yeah.
everything that we can imagine just seem very intense too, right?
Right. And like for me, my life has felt very organic in the transitions that it's taken, right? It's like it might look like a hard right turn to my family or friends I know from different parts of my life, but it's like each day has kind of led to the next one. Like, okay, I think this is the next thing I should do. So it's felt like it's progressed in a way that's made some amount of sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm curious, anything you miss from the city life, say?
Definitely. I was just in New York for a week, and we were living at an unsustainable pace. My husband and I were just doing everything. It's like to go, I miss like the vibrancy, right? Or like, yeah, just there's so much energy in New York City. And I mean, simple things like public transportation, just being able to get on a train and go everywhere. That when you're on the subway, it's like the whole world is in the subway car with you. It's like how many languages are being spoken, like what's this person eating, what's that person eating, okay, this person has a musical instrument with them, what's so I just feel like that part is so stimulating. And i'm a I love food. I really love cooking, and I love eating
I
food.
knew
And so
your
it's like,
city has a lot of good food.
yeah, well, I mean, it's like it's one of the reasons I love spending time in Vegas is that you can go rock climbing and then go eat incredible food. And like, that's its own like form of adventure in my life, is to go eat something exciting and new, and have that be, yeah, like a whole thing. And so those are pieces I miss. I think like I'm not at the place in my life where I want to go live there again. But again, like when I was 18 and leaving, I was like, goodbye, New York. I'm not part of you anymore. And now I value what it gives for sure. And I don't know.
Nice.
Cities are amazing. To see all the people and that it functions is incredible.
That is true, right? Think about the complexity of a city can have. Yeah.
Not to talk
And
about poop right away, but I was talking to my boss and he was like, can you imagine New York City? Where does all the poop go? Like, it's incredible.
that's a
Just
good
to think,
question.
who knows? But it's like to think about the infrastructure that's in that place, it's kind of mind-boggling. And so I feel like at any time in New York City or other big cities, you pause and you just look, is mind-blowing that it works.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly enjoy this conversation because I don't think I find that many people that enjoy the outdoor life and city life at the
Yeah.
same time. I met a lot of people just, oh, city life is not for me.
Yeah. I've probably, yeah, I've definitely had that voice at younger times in my life. And then I'm like, I want to be able to adapt and live wherever and like make a good life and be happy. And it's still like, there's so many, if you can, I don't want to limit myself to say this is the only way I could be happy or fulfilled in life. It's like, there's so much. I'm like, there are people who live amazing lives in the middle of the country. You know, it's like, I just don't want to have as narrow a view to say mountains are the only way or cities are the only way. Be like, I can make it work. And yeah, just to see the like the beauty in both lives or the whole spectrum of where you live. I mean, it's about having like things you enjoy doing and people you enjoy doing them with. And that's hopefully anywhere.
Yeah, I definitely have this views because we are gonna be in contact with all sorts of different clients coming from like different background, right? So
Yeah.
with like a more broad experience, we can also find more people, more things to relate to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's I mean, that's like the best thing about guiding is meeting people from all walks of life and then being able to have conversation with them and be like, that's a life that you could live. Incredible.
that's right. And
Yeah.
tell me more about like your first mountain experience. It definitely has some sort of profound meaning, right?
Yeah. My first time camping was a week-long backpacking trip in Vermont. I'm probably like staring at it behind these walls. It's a 5-day backpacking trip on the Long Trail, which is the first long distance trail in the US. And I didn't have any perspective then, it was my first experience, but hiking in Vermont is very rugged. There's no switchbacks really, and it's just
Oh,
very rocky and rooty. And it seems fitting for just kind of like my my personality and how other things in my life have unfolded. Like the first time I did something, it was 5 days long and just kind of like fully invested in it. But it's a pre-orientation program, so it occurs the week before students start college. And I was going into college mostly excited. I was like not so sure what I would do on the academic side of things. Uh, and on that trip, I remember it was our first summit, which was this kind of innocuous knob in the woods, like barely a view. And that was my first summit. And I just remember thinking, I get to do this. People do this all the time. And that I feel like for me was very eye-opening because then I got back to school and maybe it's important in that I grew up playing hockey very competitively as a kid. And I really thought I played for 13 years. I thought that whole time that I was going to go play Division 1 at a college and then, maybe I would make the Olympics or maybe somehow I would like maintain a life in hockey. And then I got really sick and I lost all my scouts. And so all of a sudden college hockey was kind of pulled out from under me. And so that was my whole identity as a kid. Like my whole social life during the school year was shaped around
right.
hockey
You
practice.
13 years, right? So you
Yeah.
start at what, age 5?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is also like totally random for a kid from New York City. Hockey is not ice hockey specifically is not a sport that's very popular in New York City. And it fell into my brother and my cousins and I's life. And then we stuck with it. And I was a goalie. And so colleges don't recruit goalies every year. And so anyway, that's all not so important, the details of it. But basically, I thought I was going to play hockey in college. And then I very much so wasn't. And so I was coming into college a little bit listless of like, I've had this identity and now I don't have it. And I'm meeting these people, new friends. And I'm like, oh, I played hockey. And they're like, that's cool. And I'm like, no, I played hockey like 5 or 6 days a week for my entire childhood. And now I don't. And especially, I mean, I feel like I have a little bit less energy now, but I'm still pretty energetic. But I had a lot of energy at 18 and I just needed somewhere to put it. And I did maybe what feels like a kind of standard US college student experience. Like I partied too much my first semester and then I was like making bad choices for my life. And then I was like, I should go hiking again. That was a really great week. And then I just got fully invested in and I joined the outdoor club at my college and that was the rest of the story. It was like, this is where I'm going to put all my energy. And so I had that moment on the backpacking trip of like, I can't believe people do this with their life. And then I kind of got to school and, it's like a big ocean. There's so much going on. And then I was like, okay, I need to do something good with my time and my energy. This is it. And so then I just focused in a lot on it. And UVM has amazing opportunities for students. to learn. So yeah, I just invested in that.
Sorry, you say UVM, University of Vermont.
Yeah, it's
What's the M?
that's a great question. It's silly. It's actually, the school is referred to as University of Vermont, but it stands for Universitas Verdes Mountainus, University of the Green Mountains. It's Latin.
Oh,
But
I see.
it's very silly because it's an acronym that doesn't actually match the words. And it's just, yeah, that was a good catch.
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, English is my second language, so I always like to ask. It's like, oh, it doesn't make sense to me. So,
It doesn't make sense to anybody.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Right. So let me review. So you play hockey for all your life before college. Wow, that was intense. Like 6 days a week.
Yeah.
You must have a lot of energy. I don't know, and it's also very disciplined.
Yeah, totally. I don't know where it came from. Well, it's my brother. My brother, like, he coerced me into being disciplined. He's really disciplined. And he
Okay.
took on the form of coach as a kid.
Wow.
And my parents embraced it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they did it. But it was like running home from school to get on the subway to go meet my dad, to then drive to hockey practice, to then be at hockey practice, and then come home and then go to school. I'm like, if I ever have a kid, I really hope they don't want to do that.
Yeah, because you're even mentioning like, okay, potentially Olympic is a possibility, right? So it's not just some recreational hockey.
I mean, that was my dream, but who knows?
Okay.
But, I mean, I was like, I'm going to own it. I was good, but I also am very short. You met me in person this fall. It's hard to be a professional goalie at 5'3". I didn't like that. But it was like funny thing to be told that like you're good enough, just not tall enough. Which, it's a nice thing. It's not really a thing in the rest of my life. It doesn't matter how tall I am, but
awesome.
Yeah.
And then so you have those energies that you are trying to find a channel to release potentially when you got in college. Yeah. And then so what was that 5 days backpacking trip about? Is it for all like any new freshmen can sign up for that?
Yes.
Is that orientation program?
So it's an optional program. When I was a first year student, the incoming class was about 1,200 people, and there's enough spots for like 350 people to go on it. Now UVM
360 people to go on backpacking trip?
Yeah. So now this is my job now for part of the year. We send out 30 different trips. They all launch on the same day.
Wow.
And it's like there's backpacking trips and canoe trips and kayaking trips and climbing trips, but they all go out on the same day for 5 days to different locations all around the Adirondacks and Vermont. And the goal of it is to help students create community before they get into school. And, there's using the sport as a vehicle to build community. Like it's not, students learn the foundation of how to camp and how to climb or canoe, but the point is that they're spending time getting to know each other, and they're student-led trips. So like sophomores, juniors, and seniors lead the trip. So it's an opportunity for incoming students to ask questions to current students, like, where do you eat lunch? What are the classes I should take? Or, what's been hard? So it's an amazing program. It's really successful for a lot of students.
I totally agree. I certainly understand using, say, outdoor as a vehicle to build community, but I didn't realize it's such a large scale.
Yeah. Packing the food it breaks my brain every summer.
There's a lot of logistics involved.
It's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of tortillas. Yeah.
And great. And then so you fell in love with outdoor, and then so you just keep going back there.
Yeah. And I mean, I started hiking a lot. I went backpacking, and then UVM at the time, the like climbing wall in the school was this hallway. It was like down some random back set of stairs in the gym. It was like an abandoned stairwell, and then it was a hallway that led to a boiler room. And in the hallway, they glued rocks to the wall.
Like real rock?
Real rocks. And they were permanent, so they were super slippery by the time I got there. And so that was my introduction to climbing, was traversing the bouldering hallway on these like tiny slippery knobs. It's gone now. There's like a legit bouldering wall area,
Now
which
it's
is
like
great
real
for students.
bouldering wall.
But I love it. That's what my initial experience was. And I was like, that was cool. I want to do it. And then I was lucky to learn there was a course to learn how to ice climb and build anchors that was free to students. And so that was like the next thing I did. And then I kind of got psyched on climbing and avoided backpacking for some amount of time.
Yeah, I can understand. Once I start climbing, I totally just did backpacking.
I wasn't that successful because then I worked at Outward Bound and then the backpacks got really heavy. But while I was in college, I was very excited about climbing. And then I was like, oh, mountaineering, that's the next thing. And so then you bring back the backpacks for that. So,
I'm curious, what did you major in college?
I was a parks, recreation, and tourism major. So here it's in the School of Natural Resources. So I would take like ecology classes and forestry classes, but then also like land management classes, understanding how the park system works, and kind of some amount of tourism infrastructure study like that.
I see. So it's kind of like a theoretical side of the outdoor.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, some people focused in ski area management. That was one option, but I was more focused on the land management side of things. It wasn't like if I could go back, I wouldn't choose it again. But at the time, it served its purpose for me, mostly in that it allowed a lot of flexibility, and I was involved in a lot of things outside of the classroom. Like I worked at the climbing gym, I led trips and things like that. So.
So in college, was there some sort of outdoor program that you're working at?
Yeah, there was the Outing Club, which was a student-run program, and then there's the Outdoor Programs Department, which is staff-run, and they did a lot of things together. And so I was really involved in those programs, and I was fortunate to have some experience doing some peer-to-peer teaching. Like I took the ice climbing course, and then I taught it, and things like that. And UVM it's in Burlington, Vermont, it's essentially a big town. People call it a city, but it is a big town. But what that allows is that it's pretty integrated into the community. And so you've interviewed Andrea. I worked for Andrea when I was a college student. And so I worked at the gym there, and I started to do a little guiding at the ice festivals and things like that. And there's another guide service here that I worked for and that I was exposed to through the Outing Club. And so it was cool to be able to be in the school programs, but also be involved in the kind of Northeast climbing community. Like I went to the Adirondack Ice Festival because of connections I made at school here. And then I would go work there. And it's like New England has a good resource pool for opportunities and people and things like that.
Yeah, my impression about New England. So I used to study in Philadelphia. So I actually started my climbing trajectory started at Banks in New York.
Nice.
And so I know a little bit of New England because I went up there to do some climbing. I learned ice climbing there. So it seems like it's a great place, even though say it doesn't have the tallest peak. It's not like huge range of like long multi-pitch route, but it's suitable for people who want to explore all sorts of different sports.
Yeah, I think it's like it offers the kind of all the options where there's a bunch of different recreation opportunities, and you can live in a city and drive a few hours and go have amazing opportunities to play outside. And the terrain here is super challenging. It just doesn't go for a very long time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we all know it doesn't take like the highest peak, right? We all know that Everest is not most technical peak comparatively, even though it's the tallest peak. So the difficulty doesn't mean to be only at the elevation.
Yeah.
And
it's cool. I mean, I'm super glad that I spent the years living in the Western US that I did. And I'm also very happy to be living back here. And I've still been able to find like plenty sense of adventure and opportunity. It looks different. But I mean, I'm still playing in the mountains, which is great.
Since you mentioned this, I'm curious because you work in Jackson and lived there for quite a few years, right?
Yeah, like almost 7.
And yeah, so definitely you have seen bigger range.
Yeah.
And then, so what's the similarity and difference if you compare, say, the west side of the Rockies and then maybe back to New England?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of metaphors.
Yes.
I feel like I was reading a book. There's a guy, he's a Middlebury professor, Bill McKibben. He's written a handful of books. One of them is called Radio Free Vermont. It's a fictional book. It's hilarious. But at one point he's waxing about change happening and about how New England is getting altered by this new vision of America. But he's walking through the woods and he has his head down and he's looking at this tiny piece of moss and the way the light is hitting it. And he's like, that's what Vermont is. Like, you get focused on the details of things versus when you're out west and you have these big expansive views and you're looking at the whole thing. And so I feel like that for me is like a great analogy of what it's like here, is like focusing in on like this amazing single pitch of climbing, and the fact that it's 15 minutes from your house versus there's giant ranges. You could go do all these things and like there's kind of the glory to those, but oftentimes we find ourselves standing back from them. But yeah, I always used to say, I'm like, the Western US is like looking at a photo taken on a digital camera, and the Eastern US is like an oil painting. Like, it takes a little bit longer for you to look at it and appreciate it. Maybe there's more muted colors, but it's also beautiful. Yeah, I appreciate here that I don't have to go very far to be in the mountains. Like, it feels like New England, the way that it just developed, right? It was people in the place. And so there's towns woven into the mountains and everything feels a little bit closer and nookier. Whereas I feel like living in Jackson, even though it's so close to Grand Teton National Park, it's pretty distant emotionally. And like similarly, like you have Vegas and Red Rock Canyon, like those feel like a universe apart. Right? Like, two totally different places to be. Whereas I feel like here you're just kind of like in it all the time. Like, there's just trails walking around the hills everywhere. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I'm rambling.
No, I love it because in my mind, my early years, I'm chasing big objectives.
Yeah.
But now I'm very content. I just go to the gym, figure out this one move on this boulder problem.
Yeah.
And of course, I can't do each single thing every single day, but it's kind of nice to have, say, a more broad perspective, and then a more close, narrow perspective.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, I mean, I lived in Jackson for almost 7 years. I guided in the range for 6 summers and 6 winters. And really, no matter where I was in the season, even if I had been in the mountains a lot, I would look at the mountains and be like, wow, like, how does anybody go up there? And where humans don't belong there is so intimidating. You have to like really kind of buck up to go out, at least for me. I mean, it's just people who feel more chalant about it. But I like that when I look around outside, the terrain is really inviting. I'm like, I could go wander up there. I should probably bring a snack, but that's about it. Like, it's just wooded and nice. And I mean, Vermont's cool. There's some really inspiring views and there's above tree line terrain, but it kind of has that sense like, oh, you were supposed to be here. Like, this is terrain that humans belong in versus like super jagged. There's no life. Like, I mean, I remember coming down from the Tetons. It's like you're up in the alpine for so long and then you plod downhill and you hit like the first section of trees and you're like, right, life. Like, it's not just this blaze white granite and you're like, trees, oh my God.
Well, trees is also something that we don't have a lot in Vegas, but
that's true.
Yeah, but I totally understand the greens and lives, wild animals and everything. And so then how did you end up into our band?
I ended up at Outward Bound because I had to do an internship as part of college, and somebody that I went to school with here had done the internship at Outward Bound in Colorado. So between my junior and senior year of college, I went there and I did an internship, which was half the time you're in a logistics role. So picking students up from the airport or packing out trips or bringing a resupply to the trips. And then you also worked a 20-day field course. So I was like the third instructor on a 20-day mountaineering course in the Gore Range, I think. So I did that internship. It was awesome. I met some of my best friends to date. I feel like we grew up together. And then so when I finished college, I went right back. I said that, that's just where I wanted to go. And then I was there for 3.5 years. I think I did 5 summers. One of them was like a half summer, but then I worked 2 full winters with them, which was wild. I've done a lot of winter camping. A lot of it was with Outward Bound. But yeah, Outward Bound is, it's such a special chapter in my life. I feel like I grew so much just as an individual and like had such rich experiences. And yeah, just I look back, I'm like, what a cool time in my life. I'm glad that it ended. It ended when it needed to, but I feel super grateful to have worked there and like be in the community, and it still feels like it's a part of my life, even though I haven't worked there for 7 years or 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, because I personally have worked for NOS, National
Nice.
Leadership School.
Yeah.
And I took quite a few NOS courses before too. And for me, it's just like you said, it's like an important phase of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I always appreciate that, wow, because the NOS course is always very long. It's like a 30-day out in the wilderness.
Yeah.
It's very nice to have that. Then I know that, wow, I can survive and actually live quite comfortably. So I'm curious, like, what's the biggest thing you took out of the Outward Bound experience?
That's a lot. To put it into a lesson, but there's everything you just said about like the comfort of living in the mountains. That's for sure really important. But what I think it was so much of the emotional learning. It was the connecting with students and co-instructors, and I feel like to like have the opportunity to meet all those students and connect, just like watch them grow. And I think maybe it was to realize like the power of intentional conversation and like pushing people. Like when you push people, they will go. I think sometimes I maybe annoy the people, my friends, because I just like seeing what people are made of, and I just feel like I got to see that over and over again. It's like, look at these people pushing themselves. This is really inspiring, and to see young people as well. I don't know. It's hard to put into words. If you've had that similar experience, it's like, it's such a strange world. You're just you're just operating as if like you're the last 10 people on earth and you're in these mountains and you have this tribe that you make. And for me, and it sounds like you, like I did that for 3 years straight, pretty much, where I was just on a course, have a couple days off, maybe go climb with some friends, go on another course. And it's like these 20, 30 days at a time, incredibly rich experiences of just living with people, like not like, oh, you roommates with somebody, but like fully immersed in who these people are. And then it's so strange because then you leave and like your co-instructor, maybe you work with them again, maybe they happen to be your friend, but a lot of times like they're just gone. And you wonder, like, where are these people? I've kept in touch with, I don't know, a dozen or so former students, but it just happened. It's like the experiences themselves happen in the vacuum, but the hope that the lessons don't. It's like, learning what you're capable of, communicating with people, all the technical skills and all that. It's like that hopefully leaves the mountains, but the individual moments, like it's so hard to describe to people.
I totally understand. And how about then why did you feel that it was time to move on to your next phase?
Yeah, so I was 23. Yeah, I was 23 turning 24, and I had worked 2 back-to-back semester courses. So those
and
are
semester is what? 80, okay,
80 days. Incredible opportunities. I got to go to Ecuador. They were really challenging. They were in the it was fall 2016. Yeah, fall 2016. So Trump's first election year. We were in Ecuador. And then the next course started on Inauguration Day. So like very heavy period of time to be curating an experience. I remember at 23 being like, how do I hold this space for people? And those courses, they're generally older. Like I had people who were like, I mean, some really serious situations on that particular course, but like, can you let me know if my healthcare just goes off the table while we're in the field? I'm like, yeah, I will. Anyway, so it was a heavy time. There was a lot of things in Outward Bound that were there was a lot of change happening structurally, where I felt like when I had come into the school, it felt like I was fully in line, like my values and the school's program, or in the school's values and how they were running programs were in line. And it started to feel like there was a division. And then I had these 2 very intense semester courses where I learned a ton, but it was kind of like, okay, what next? Like, how am I going to continue doing this? And also I was like, I'm 23. Like, I have no friends unless there happen to not be on course, like I don't know where I live. I'm just kind of everywhere. And I was just feeling that. And then my friend Kip was really pushing me. He was like, you should take your alpine guide course. We were in Ecuador. I remember we were walking along the like highlands on the way to Antisana. And he was like, you have to do your alpine guide course. Just kind of like, you gotta. And, when we came back from that trip, I had an email from Erica Engel. You know Erica, right?
Yes.
I had met her in November of that year at the annual meeting. It's the only one I've ever went to, and it was fortuitous. It was the one she got pinned. She had just finished, and I met her, and we talked for a few minutes, and then she emailed me, and I came back from that Ecuador trip from an email from her saying, "Have you ever considered guiding in the Tetons?" And I was like, like I wanted to puke, because I had been to the Tetons a handful of times and like scared the shit out of myself just because we were like, young kids trying to do things. But that was the like, oh my God, do you really think I should? And so then I emailed Rob at JHMG, and then it was just kind of, it happened. It was like, I was thinking about it. And then this kind of nudge from Erica came. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Jackson for the summer and I'll check it out. I never really thought of Jackson as a place I wanted to live from the times that I had been there. Cause I had just come in as a kind of as a tourist to go climbing, and the town isn't that attractive. But so I went for the summer, and then it was the next 7 summers.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and how did it go? Like, you stayed there for 7 years. You must somehow enjoyed it.
It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, that first summer I was insatiable. So I was 24. I feel like I don't remember sleeping ever. I was living out of my car. I was like, I love history. My dad is a big history buff, and so for me, being in the Tetons is just like all of a sudden like jumping into the history books. Like, you're walking around and you're reading the guidebook and you're like, Chenard did what in 1970? Oh my gosh, now I'm climbing this. And yeah, the guide services there are so steeped in history, and people live it and remember it. And I don't know, there was just like so much excitement for me. And I just I'm like, yeah, very driven. And I had nothing else. So I was like, I'll work. And I was doing other things like the rest of the year. like I traveled in the off season, but for me, the Tetons, I just felt like was very embraced by the community there. You know, it's like I had women like Lisa Van Sciver and Amy Barnes as mentors, and um, you know, other people at the mountain guides that brought me up and really trusted me and pushed me. Mark Postal, who was the lead guide at the mountain guides for a long time. Like, I remember he assigned me to be 3-1 on the grand. And I was like, what if I'm not ready? And he made a motion of like kicking the birdie off the ledge. Like, time to fly. I was like, okay, if you think I can, I will. And yeah, I learned so much. The Tetons for me, it's like one of the places that just it's one of the centers of the universe in my life. You know, it's like the terrain is so inspiring and it's so intimidating as well. But I just always felt like very drawn to the place. And I had traveled around a lot in the Western US, but it was like no matter where I lived, I always wanted to come back to the Tetons. And yeah, I mean, it's an amazing place. The caliber of athleticism that's on display there is kind of jaw-dropping. It's like you always feel so slow in comparison to people, and then you're like, wait, no, I'm not slow. Everyone here is a freak. But no, I mean, I'm the Tetons are a very special place to me. And similarly, it was like the kind of progression or like the sequence of events to leave just felt really natural. It was just kind of things falling into place, maybe sooner than I expected, because I went from like I'll never live in Jackson to I'm never leaving, and then one day I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. Here we go. But no, my years in Jackson were awesome. I mean, backcountry snowboarding there, it's legendary. It's like, yeah, I mean, the climbing there is amazing. It's got a ton of history, and then the skiing as well. Like it has both of that, and then I just feel like I got to learn from so many incredible people that I still like, you know, they're my family, even if I'm here, which is pretty cool.
And that's where your more technical guiding happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I guided some in the desert Southwest, and I have worked on Rainier. I worked on Mount Hood for a couple seasons. I kind of like for me, I just have always been interested in like, oh, what's the next experience I could have? What's the gap in my skill set? Like, I don't have any glacier guiding experience. I want to go to Rainier. I haven't done this. Let me go try that. And so I tried to always fill in my seasons with other things, but the majority of my guiding experience is in the Tetons. Yeah.
And then you guide both climbing and snowboarding or skiing?
Yeah. Yeah. Snowboarding.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked at the resort as a snowboard instructor. I taught avalanche courses. I did some guiding on my snowboard. Yeah, a lot of time in booths.
Yeah, because I read your resume. You're an alpine guide right now, right?
No, I just did my alpine guide course. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
I see.
I did my assistant ski guide, and then I just became a certified rock guide this fall.
Yeah, congratulations.
Cool. Thanks.
But you're also a splitboard guy, is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know how to ski.
Oh, you know, really? But splitboard, isn't it? Okay,
I know how to split ski very well.
Okay, yes.
Right. But I never skied. My family doesn't ski. So I learned the skiing I know is on my splitboard. And I think it's super fun to ski the splitboard. And my friends think I'm a maniac because I'll definitely be kind of aggressive with where I go on the split skis. But yeah, I've pretty much just been a snowboarder. I learned to snowboard when I was in college. I didn't grow up doing it.
I see. Yeah, because I interviewed, do you know Sarah Jennen?
Just peripherally, like we've never met. Okay. I just through social media and stuff.
I see. Because I think she's also a splitboard guy.
Yeah, her and Sarah McGregor, they just became the first two female certified splitboard guides.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is awesome. Yeah, it's funny because I've known Sarah McGregor for a long time, just like running similar circles. We used to both ride for Weston snowboards. And it's so cool to see that she went through the certification. I just stayed steady. I've just always kind of like drifted in and out of the AMGA program. I'm like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. And forever people are like, you got to be the first. And I'm like, somebody else probably wants it way more. Like, I don't know.
Because in one of the article on, I think the jacksonholesnowboarder.com, that I read an article about you and then mentioned that, maybe you will be the first female splitboard guy.
For me, people just love to throw it around. You're going to be the first. You're going to be the first.
That's right.
Like, whatever. Like, somebody's going to be the first, of course. And I just feel like it was this thing that people love to put, it was like something you could write in an article, right? And I was just like, I'm just going through my own educational path. And, I do understand that, like, it's amazing for Sarah and Sarah to be able to say they're the first women to get certified. And I was like, it's not that important to me. For me, like, I think all of us going through it, like when I did my ski guide, my ski guide course, I was on the course with my friend Iris, and we were the first women to go through the course on a split board. At least that's what I was told. Who knows? But I was like, that's amazing. Like, we're all kind of pushing the door a little bit further open. It's not important to me to be like, to have a title. It's like, we've all played a part in saying, like, somebody did their assistant ski guide course on a split board. Amazing. Like, that's so rad. I want to do that too. But I don't know. I get kind of cynical about the like media side of things, because I feel like people just want to have something like a story. And I'm like, it's
right.
like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm just Izzy. I like hanging out, and that's it.
Yeah, I totally understand, because I don't think people compete for the first female or whatever. But definitely, if they are like in the mountaineering world, they're definitely speed record and first ascent or whatever. I bet there's some competition out there. But in this level that if we try and just say we want to broaden the representative, it doesn't really matter who is the first, right?
No, I want there to be 10. I want there to be 20. Like,
right.
It's got to start with one, and then, but I was like, never wanted it to feel competitive. Like, I'm like, I'm not going to take my ski exam because I heard that this other person's taking their ski exam. I'm like, I don't know, like, it doesn't fit in my schedule, or I'm not ready for it. So yeah, but I do want to do the ski exam. I think it needs to fit in when I have a full-time job now. So there's that.
Right.
But
what do you think about this representation, though? Because I mean, the article definitely sounds like it's really important for you as a female. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like the majority of my work these days is women's programming, and it's like, what I guess I'm saying is, like, I don't need the spotlight to do the work that I want to do. I just want to be creating opportunities. And I know how important it is. It's like, I used to be more cynical about women's programming because I grew up playing with boys, and I just was like, I don't know, I feel like I'm thriving here. And then I would do more women's programming, and I would see the outcomes. And then I actually started to be surrounded by other women through my own growth and guiding and career and personal climbing. And I was like, oh, this is what this environment feels like. If I can help create this, that's what I want to do. And so, that's what I'm doing. Like, last year here, I did like 30 plus days of women's on snow programming. Most of it was free, and just trying to create those opportunities for people. But it's funny. I was skiing this morning with 10 women, and I was like, we were like, oh, this is amazing. We woke up for sunrise to go skiing. And then all of a sudden, a pack of like 15 guys showed up. And I was like, dang, just when you think there's a lot of women in the world, 15 men show up. I feel lucky that I've been super lucky to have a lot of my recreation and professional career be influenced by and surrounded by really incredible women. And I know that's not everybody's case. Like um, this splitboard clinic that I ran last year, women were driving up from 8 hours away, Pennsylvania, and way far away, Massachusetts, to come. And they're like, this is the only place that I know about splitboarding, and I don't have any women in my life that want to go snowboarding. And so they were traveling there. I was like, oh man, and they want it, and it was so awesome for them. You know, their moms making their trek for the weekend. I was like, so happy to be able to put my energy into this. Um, so that's how I
Yeah,
feel.
I I I I can relate because I was put in to teach some all female course for
Hmm.
sure, and I guess when I was pursuing my own climbing, whatever, I think I recognized I was one of the few women, but I think I was so into climbing that I intentionally ignore the
Hmm.
fact. I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna try to be better on my own
Yeah.
and ignore whatever that's considered noise. And but then, so I was like cynical, like you. I just like, oh, what does this do and all that. But definitely, I can see that um, some people need that environment. It's not like they are not capable; they just need an environment to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, the new like soapbox that I've been on in my life is like, what's next? Like, even in my job here, it's like we do so much programming to get people into a sport, introduced to an activity or a community, and then what? And so the thing that I'm trying to work on both at UVM and in other things I'm doing outside of work here is like the advanced programming, like a level 2 program, because it's like, okay, yeah, you learned how to do some basic rock climbing movement, but like, where's the all women's course of learn to lead? And then, so like, I'm running a women's ski mountaineering course in New Hampshire this winter with my friend Ashley, because I was like, we were like, people learn how to go tour up a ski area, but then what's next? It's like the rest is still really intimidating. And if the all women's environment helped them thrive here, why wouldn't we try to make that space later in their development? Um, And I feel like there was recently a petition in the AMGA, right? It was like for advanced affinity programs for the same reason. And it's like, how do we continue to support people through their education and not just it's like, all right, we helped you off step one.
Yeah. And so what is your current job and when did you start this one?
So it'll be 2 years in January, and my title is coordinator for outdoor programs. Functionally, I'm the assistant director of the program, and I have one coworker, Devin. He's an amazing human, and so he's the director of the program. His cubicle is on that side of the wall. um, but so I started here 2 years ago, and the job it's a bunch of different hats depending on the time of the year, which is good. It's like a pretty dynamic thing. I have a desk job, but I'm not at my desk the same time every day, and sometimes I'm not at my desk. But uh, my job is I act as an advisor to student-run clubs, and that's like both on the club level, and then I have relationships with the students, and they might come to me to like talk through maybe some conflict that's going on in the club or just what's going on in their life. And that part of my job I really appreciate. And then we run a leadership development semester program. So it's actually like it's 8 weeks. So we run two versions of it in the spring semester, but it's a mix of classroom time and then they do a week-long expedition where it's like the field practicum. So they're learning like communication and leadership and risk management and those things, like a pared down Knowles course, right? Um, and then there's this pre-orientation program, and that actually takes the majority of the year to plan. You know, it starts really big level, and then next thing you know, it's like August, and you're pulling apart bags of tortillas. And then I have like general administrative duties in the university. So I get a bit of field time, but it's been cool. You know, for me, I worked so long seasonally, and I really thought that was like the freest I would ever be, was to like be puzzling together contracts and things like that. But it's been cool to have actually to see that the structure actually creates a lot of opportunity for personal freedom and growth. Like, I know when I'm going to work, so then I know when I can go play, and I'm done with work. I work, you know, I'm done with work at 4:30, and then I'm going to go mountain bike after work. And it was a very abrupt transition to go. It was like in the middle of a winter guiding season, and then I moved here. But I'm really lucky. I mean, the students that I get to work with are incredible, and I love that part of my job, and I get to do all of the logistics.
So this one is a full-time job, right?
Yeah, it's 12 months.
And so it's a transition after the Teton guiding, right? 7 years Teton guiding. So in Teton, did you work mostly summer and winter? Is that right?
Yeah. The season kind of died out by like the second week of September is like when you would take the huts down.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
so your busy time is summer and winter.
Yeah. And then I'd like piece together the spring and the fall.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then so you were also saying that, you didn't think that you would live in Teton that long, but you also just like, I was ready to transition into another job. What was the thought process there?
So a lot of things. My partner and I are both from New York. David is from Long Island. We met in Wyoming. But we actually grew up like 10 miles from each other, and all of our family is kind of in that bubble of New York, Long Island. You know, parents are getting older, kids are being born. There's like that pull east. And then there was also the like kind of looking around and saying, is this what we're going to do for the next 30 years, 40 years? Like what are the opportunities for us to continue to grow as individuals here? You know, it's not the smallest mountain town. It's not like it's Silverton size, but there's a limited number of jobs outside of the tourism industry. And it was just kind of like all of a sudden that felt, I don't know, lack of a better word, boring, like to look at and be like, we're just going to do this over and over and over again. And
you mean like in Teton, you mean?
Yeah, like just the season of like you work so hard. You work so hard, May to September, and Thanksgiving to April 10th when the resort closes. And then you like come up for air, and then you leave because it's like too cold or muddy or something. So it was just like, I could have kept doing it for a few more years, but I think all of a sudden I was like, I think I might want something else in my life. I don't know what it is. And my partner did as well. And it was a distant thing. We were like, maybe in 10 years we'll move. And then, a couple months later, the conversation would come up like, maybe in 5 years we'll move. And then maybe in a year or two. And 2 years ago, instead of going to Moab or something in the shoulder season, like, okay, let's go to New York and we'll go play in Vermont. I have a lot of friends here still from college. We can go biking. And so while we were here, a friend of mine who I went to school with and worked at Outward Bound with actually texted me a link to the job application that I have now. And so I was like, this is kind of my dream job. Like when I was in college, I tried to write a job proposal for myself that is essentially the job that I have now. I was like, this is the job that I wanted 10 years ago. I got to apply. And I applied, and then all of a sudden was like thrusted into the job application process. And they offered me the job on December 15th. And on January 15th, I moved. So it was like, boom, 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 boom. There was like not enough time to pause. It was like, I think we should do this. Like this, we've been talking about it. Let's just go. I can be the impulsive one in my relationship where I'm like, I think this makes sense. We should go for it. And sometimes it works out. It's worked out on this round.
Yeah, but I think it might be in pause right now because things move so fast. But
So
somehow I feel
fast.
they already have the feeling. So you're thinking
Yeah.
about probably the sustainability of this career, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
you see it like, I think especially for the alpine guiding, I look around, I was like, who has cartilage in their knees in their late 50s? Like, and it's like, I'm kind of in the generation that's taking better care of their bodies through their career. But I was like, there's no health insurance. There's like the jobs don't actually support the individual. I've broken myself a couple times. I point here because I've broken my collarbone a bunch of times. But I'm like, eventually your body can't do it. And I just felt like I've been feeling for a while, like, oh my God, what's my skill set? I walk uphill and I tie knots and I don't know what else. And it's obviously more than that. And I've learned that in this job. I'm like, wow, you gain so much from guiding. The skills go so far. It's not just walking uphill and tying knots, but um, I just was looking around and like got a little, I think like starting to panic a little bit of like, do you just wait until you're there to make the choice to change? Or do you say, okay, I've got time to make this decision. Like I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't have a family yet. Like, what do I want this gap in time to be between like when I can't do it anymore and what I'm doing right now? And so I think I was like starting to go along that path of like, what's my plan? People always ask me, what's your escape plan? What's your escape plan from guiding? You know, what's your plan B?
gee,
Uh,
I need a plan B myself.
well, it's like, but I mean, like, I think the educational programs and stuff that you do is that it's like, what are the like less hard on your body work opportunities that you can do? I mean, it's like, as you can use your brain, like you could teach courses and be on the ground the whole time and still have life-changing experiences for people and like set them up with a skill set and like you're all good. You take a family top roping and it's like, no, it may not be the most engaging work, but it's also the lens that you wear that day of like, what am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? So I don't know. It was like I was just in that phase and then the opportunity showed itself and I was like, let's do it. And so yeah, I mean, I think that'll just probably keep happening in life where you're like, I've got enough information to say I don't think this is a terrible decision. Let's go find out. And for me, do you know who Annie Duke is? She's a,
I don't know.
she's a poker player and an
Oh.
author, and it's really cool. She writes books about risk management and decision making, but
Mm.
kind of with her expertise as a poker player. But she talks a lot about the reversibility of a decision. As
Mm-hmm.
like you know, do you go left around the tree or right around a tree? It doesn't matter. Like, because if you go left and it doesn't work, it's low consequence. You turn around, you go right around the tree versus like, do you jump off the cliff or not off the cliff? Like, so for me, I was like, this is reversible. Like, if we don't like living here, it's okay. I don't like this job. We like, you can quit a job. It's not make or break. So, uh, yeah, I think it was just like the willingness to go for it.
I mean,
Sure.
I love your explanation because I related to when I teach like route finding, right? So a lot of my students worry that, oh, what if I get lost?
Yeah.
And what if I'm off route? I say you can always turn around.
Yeah.
It's not irreversible, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you got to at one point make a decision
Yeah.
and try it, right?
And I like to tell people, I'm like, you actually just found out information, right? You found out that wasn't the right way
Exactly.
to go. And
Yeah.
so that's okay. And I'm like, it's good. It's good to like take a step forward and then say, no, I actually like, I'm choosing to go this way because I went that way and I didn't like it versus just going on a path because it's what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious because I know that people are afraid of uncertainty, right? So I
Mhm.
like the way that you say this information because in the past I was more in the research field.
Oh,
And
cool.
sometimes you have to verify your hypothesis, right? So
Yeah.
some people think only that you verify your hypothesis, you are success. I say no. If you rule out other things,
Yes.
then that's also success.
Yes, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's like information, right? So
Yeah.
I like the way you put it. I just wonder how I can make people feel more at ease. It's fine to make a decision.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, to find the excitement in the unknown is like to, it's a big paradigm shift. And I mean, it's how we talk about risk and uncertainty and not knowing in all of our life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about like there was it's a parable, but it's like this metaphor about the empty hub in a bicycle.
And we
But
have a bicycle.
yeah, that it's like the space where there's nothing, it can actually be anything. And that's my outlook on life. Like it's something is very fixed. Like this is my job. It's what it's going to be. And then there's like every other opportunity that I don't know. But that could be anything in your life. It's like all of the opportunity exists in what you don't know yet. It's like what you're saying. Like you have your known knowns and then the unknowns. But the unknowns could be really, really good.
That is true. If you know
Yeah.
everything, it's kind of boring too.
Yeah. I'm not at that point yet, thank gosh. But yeah, I like it. And I'm just like, it's all information gathering about like, what do you like in life? And how do you want to spend your time? I think it's like to be curious. You don't have to commit to it. It's just to be curious about like, oh, I wonder what that feels like. Do I like that kind of guiding? Do I like this kind of work? Like I was like, no way will I work in a desk ever. And then I took a desk job and I'm like, you know what? I get to eat salad every day at lunch. I love eating salad for lunch. That's amazing.
Then
there are
I'm curious. How many days are you in the field now?
for work at UVM, like 20-ish a year. So it's not nothing, but it's usually like right when I start to feel stir crazy is when I'm like, okay, then we have a trip coming. Trying to build in more opportunities for myself, but then it's like, okay, this is my job and it doesn't have to it's not the only thing that fills my cup. And so like I go on a lot more personal trips at this time in my life. And I still do a little bit of guiding. Like you met Jess this fall. I guided a ski trip with her last winter. I'm going to go again this winter. And so I still have little bits of guiding work that for me, it's like I get to meet people, I get to teach. Those are things I like. So I still have that part of my life. And then, I just do a lot more of my own recreation. So it doesn't feel that bad to have a desk job because I'm like,
That's
I'm not too tired. It's sweet. Yeah. Well, I was like, I was there for the exam, but between me taking this job and the exam, I had been to Vegas 2 or 3 times just for fun. And I couldn't remember, but like while I was guiding full time, Vegas is like where you do your exam prep. And I was like, no, Vegas, where you go do amazing rock climbing. It's so fun. So it's been great to kind of like re-enter the world. I joke around. I'm like, I'm just a member of the public now. But I have still community in the guiding world and I have a strong skill set, but I do get to just feel like I can be a junk show. I can be late. I don't have my headlamp. I'm just going to play. And I like that, but I'm glad that I have some amount of field time in my job. And cause it's like, for me, that's where the relationships with the students are built. It's like it's going back to the Outward Bound days where you're like, I'm living with you. Like, yes, you're going to come at the end of this trip, you're going to come and sit in this chair in my cubicle. But like we were in the canoe together, like into the headwind. So that's where that bond is. And it's so good. Yeah.
Yes. Sweet. It seems to me that, well, you definitely plan, but you're not too fixated on a certain thing.
One of my favorite quotes is you have to maintain a rigid state of flexibility.
A rigid state of flexibility.
It's a plan.
That's kind of deep.
Yeah, I got it from somebody else. I didn't make it up. But it's like have a plan, be willing to change. Like if you need to make the change, you do it. Don't be scared to, because there's going to be another opportunity and another point that you're going to have to make a decision. Like no one decision is the end point. Obviously, if they're maybe like more serious, it matters in life, but just like on the day to day, it's like, okay, I like planning. I truly love planning. And I also love spontaneity of like, oh, well, that seems fun. Let's go do that. And yeah.
Then I'm curious at all these different transitions. Near the end of a certain phase, have you ever feel any feeling of burnout?
For sure, at the end of the Outward Bound phase, it was like both the physical burnout and then the emotional. I wasn't super happy with the administration and things like that. And the rest, I feel like I left while I was still having fun. And that feels good. Like leaving with positive memories of being like, I look back fondly, versus like, yes, having disdain for a chapter in life. It's like, leave before the party's over, say goodbye, go. So I don't know. I think like because I've been like curious to try a lot of different opportunities, I haven't been burnt out. I think so much of it is attitude, and like being able to, it's attitude and learning to say no to opportunities because you need rest, or saying no to opportunities because you want to, put energy into a different part of your life. Like for me, guiding full time and then being in a relationship, like transitioning into a partnership, and was like, okay, cool. Like there's multiple things that I can't get burnt down on one or the other. And so, yeah, I think just like learning to judge where I need to put my energy has allowed me to not like burn out in one place in my life or another.
Nice. Yeah. And then the feeling of burnout, if you have that once, it's good enough.
Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, like you get into this because it's like, feel like you're really living, and then when you're burnt out, you just don't want to get up. And that's so sad. I mean, there's so many incredible experiences to have and people to meet. And when you're seeing the world in a dark shade of gray instead of how vibrant that it is, like, oh, you need to take a break and come back. I mean, it's got to be good. There are times in life, I mean, it's like life's not all butterflies and rainbows. Like life is serious and it can be super sad. I mean, there's like a lot of moments of grief in the timeline of my life. It's like being in the mountain community can be incredibly sad. And
yes,
like, so it's not like, oh yeah, like life's been just amazing the entire time. There's been a lot of struggle, but emotional hardships and like feeling lonely and feeling sad and questioning. But I think just like I'm a momentum person, and so being like, okay, like keep it up. And yeah, and then the relationships, I mean, I think that's a big thing too, is like having time to build actual relationships, of what I think has kept me from being burnt out, because I'm like, these are the people that support my life and mean so much to me. And I think, yeah, I feel really fueled by the people that I've gotten to spend time with. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it definitely makes sense. I think you have a lot of passion in working with people or bring up stuff in people and all those things. And I think that's a very important quality to be a guide.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a people job.
It is a people job. I don't understand why people always say it's a technical job. It is kind of a technical job, but I think the majority is a people job.
Yeah, but it's like if your clients are having a bummer time because you're not talking, it's like they don't care. It's like they're coming to spend time. Is like your attitude is such an influence on their experience. And
definitely.
And also being like, it's their experience. Like, I'm not going around, like, this isn't what I'm choosing to do today. I'm choosing for them maybe, but like, this is their experience. And I think for me too, it's like, how many incredible people have you gotten to meet and build relationships in your life? Ting Ting is like through guiding, right? And to just be, I feel like an enormous sense of gratitude for the people that I've gotten to cross paths with. And, it's like that I keep in touch with through guiding. Like, when else in my life would I have crossed paths with this person except for right now, because I have this skill set and they have this desire, but now we're here. And now actually, like, those things aren't so important. It's the fact that we're right next to each other, and now we get to interact and learn from and with each other. And yeah, I feel like it's such a cool thing. There's 8 billion people on Earth, and then you like collide with another human. So cool. Yeah. It's like to see the full spectrum. Maybe not the full spectrum, because maybe there's like a demographic of people that come, but it's amazing the people that you get to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know this question might seem silly because you probably just started this phase of your life. Have you ever imagined like your next phase of your life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a little blurry. I mean, right now I feel very excited about living here in Vermont in the Northeast. And I mean, there's the like wondering of like, do we have a family? What do we do? Do we just keep having dogs? Should we move somewhere else? But for me, I don't have like I don't know what I'm like grasping for at the moment. Like, I'm not like,
You're
I have
not like,
ideas.
I want to be the first female of whatever.
Yeah. No, I think about going back to school. I have like I have had in my head for a long time that I would go to school for counseling.
Counseling.
And yeah, and then like be able to kind of bridge the two things, and I don't know, I feel like so often, and especially with women's groups, you just like hear really intense stories. People like trauma comes up, and I want to, and like I feel like over time, like I've learned how to help people move through anxiety or kind of like process or, reflect. I mean, that's a big part of our job. But I just am like, it'd be probably better if I had more tools to do that. And so that's kind of a motivation of mine, is to like, maybe I'd have a counseling degree and then I would run like group retreats. Like, it's climbing, but it's with a focus on grief and recovery, grief processing and climbing, things like that. Like, people who have maybe are like sharing that experience, but want to use climbing as the vehicle to explore that part of life. Or I don't know. That's a loose idea, but I feel like it's a long ways away.
Well,
but that's
I mean, it always starts with like small ideas, right? Because I think that this desk job, even though in the past you didn't think about it, probably start with a very small idea when you were right.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm like, for me, I'm just trying to keep trying to, I'm like, what am I interested in? What do I want to learn? And then I love, like, my partner makes fun of me because I talk to strangers all the time. Like, I love networking because I'm like, oh, what can I learn from you? And so I feel I'm like, I'm going to keep kind of living the way I want to live and see what opportunities come my way and be like, does that feel right? No, closing the door on that, moving forward here. And yeah, I definitely want to put a lot of, I think maybe the biggest part of the next part of my life is just focusing on me and my relationship. And I think spending a little bit more time, spending more time with my family. So I was, it's like the whole guiding thing for me is really important, but it definitely felt like a more selfish time in my life. I was so focused on my own development, it was like to help other people, but trying to gain as many skills and experiences. And now I'm just trying to be like a little bit more available for my community and family. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious. You say that your husband made fun of you because you like to talk to strangers. And actually, don't chuckle, because I have this question for you. Because when I just start guiding over here in the States, because I didn't grow up in the States, my biggest fear is I don't know how to chat with people. Like chit chat is like hard. It's kind of funny. I didn't worry about my technical skill, but I was like so worried about how to chat with people.
Yeah.
And then so how do you break ice with strangers?
I mean, I think that's like I'm very comfortable with myself. Like I'm okay to be weird and make mistakes, and yeah, I think just like be silly. Not like so to the degree that it seems unprofessional, but like I'm just gonna be me, and I feel like naturally that kind of invites people to then be themselves. Like I don't really try to put on a performance. I'm like this. You're gonna get Izzy whether you meet me at the desk, whether you meet me at the trailhead or whatever, wherever. And honestly, I'm not that great at chit chat in the sense that I tend to just like dive in with people, and I'm like, well, he'll be like, what'd you learn about that person? I'm like, oh, I learned some deep family history. I know where they want to go in the next 5 years. Like I want to like move past the niceties and just be like, who are you? What
Right, it's not the weather.
Yeah. What'd you do at work today? Was it for lunch? But yeah, like what lights up your fire? What's the thing you want to do in your life? Who is somebody you care about?
Whoa, that was like intense.
but I feel like if anything in life, it's just been proven to me that like people do want to share those things, and if you invite it, people share it. And so yeah, I've done it. Like my least favorite thing is to be in a circle of like 3 or 4 people where nothing is really being said, and I'm like zoning out really hard. But I love talking to people. I love getting to know what their life has been like, yeah, I don't know. I love reading. I love reading memoirs and biographies is like, because you get to see people's lives on, the whole thing. And I feel like when you get to meet somebody, it's like your opportunity to see what another life has been like. And so I think it's okay to not be good at chit chat because it's kind of useless. It's just filler, right?
Yes. Yeah, I guess I never really chit chat. But I like you say, it's just kind of genuinely interesting learning people.
Yeah.
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 And then don't worry too much that you make a fool out of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's weird. Like that's my it's like everybody's weird. And like most people are self-conscious and all these things, like we're all so worried about how we're coming off and all this. So it's like that's the common ground we share. So it's like, when you're in a bigger group or you're at a work environment, maybe you don't have control of the atmosphere, but like it's your trip. You're like you as the guide or the educator, you get to curate the space. You get to set the tone. And so for me, when I'm in that space, I'm like, the tone is that we are all human. Maybe you'll cry, maybe you're going to laugh, maybe you're going to like what these things happen. It's okay. And you don't have to hide those parts. It's like, it distracts. I feel like all of that is like really distracting from the learning, right? And you're like so caught up in what everybody else is thinking, but
yeah. It's so much fun. I didn't get to spend a lot of time when you were in Vegas here, but so nice. It's so easy to talk to, and I already took a lot of your time, but as one last question I'd like to ask is, what's your favorite guide tool?
Favorite guide tool?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wait, what do you mean?
Just means anything you say. Wow, every day guiding, you're like, oh, this is like what I use. Can be a soft skill, could be some piece of equipment. I don't know, anything.
It's not like the most. I feel like the thing that every time I get to do it, I'm like, oh, it's what is it? It's the revolving door. Like when you mess up your ropes or whatever, and you spin the carabiner around, and so that it pops the rope out on the right side. I feel like for me, it feels like magic, and I'm like, I just saved a disaster. It's not like something I use every day, but when I use it, I'm like, yes, I did it. What's yours?
My guide tour. I think my guide tour is I keep asking questions, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also learned from this podcast is just keep asking questions, and you're gonna ask a few right questions.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
then they will help people to open up.
Yeah. I think maybe if I was to say one that doesn't have to do with a knot, it would be play music.
Play music.
Play music.
Okay.
I'm like listening to music most of the time if I'm not like in conversation or reading something. But I have found like when clients are nervous, and you play music for a second and like just have a little bit of a sing along or dance along, or like you're celebrating and you put music on. I think it's a thing, especially when you're in like those far out places and guiding, whether it's like you're 2,000 feet off the deck, rock climbing, or you're on a summit, and then you bring this part of normal life into the scene. Like, it's so fun. And music is a bonding point. It's, it like speaks through generations. And then you're like, yes, and it's going to like make the memory, right? They're going to hear that song. They're going to think of being in that place. It's like, I love that. I mean, yeah, I just love the auditory response or memory. Yeah,
definitely. And it's also help people to relax, right? It's not,
yeah.
I mean, it's serious, but don't take it that seriously. And then people can come back to a normal sense.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm like leading something that's kind of scary to me or hard, I put music on in my chalk bag, and it's the like, okay, I'm starting to like notice my breath getting escalated or I'm getting shaky. It's like, oh, what song is playing? And it's like something to pull me out of my own head. And so I like, yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can use it as a tool. Yeah.
Definitely.
So much.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, well, best of luck of your current position.
Thanks.
And then I'm also looking forward to see your next transition, but even I know it's probably gonna be a few years out.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm always thinking of ideas, but yeah, I mean, this kind of thing, I've done a couple interviews in my life, and I'm so like grateful for that this podcast does. But I want to ask questions. Who's going to interview Ting Ting? That's the question. But
yeah, I'm also a female guy too, right? So somebody
yes,
should
exactly. Yeah. I was actually, right before we hopped on, I was thinking, this one of my favorite podcasts. It actually is like, it's funny, the similarity. It's called Wiser Than Me.
Wiser Than Me.
Wiser Than Me. It's hosted by Julie Louise-Dreyfus. She's an actress. She was on Seinfeld, if you know the show. And she interviews old female celebrities. Like her whole thing is like, there's these amazing women that partake in television and music and comedy and sports, and they get old and they just fade into the background. Like that's what society does to female celebrities. And then she's like, wait, there's all these incredible experiences for us to learn from. So she interviews people like Billie Jean King, Jane Fonda, Alice Waters, like these incredible women, they're in their 60s to their 90s. But you get to just hear a slice of life as these women lived. And this just reminded me of this, of like, you get to capture, it's just, who are these women and what did they learn? And, yeah, I mean, I'm tangenting now, but for me, like, I think I said this to you, the fact that you got to do an interview with Amy is like one of the things I value most in my life. I mean, I just like, it's just so important to me. And I know I have voicemails of hers and I get to I can hear that part of her voice, but it's like just to hear somebody's spirit captured, because life moves so fast and news moves so fast. And it's like to pause and just like get to speak to people. So I feel like, yeah, it's just really, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I've just valued everyone that I've listened to. A lot of them, I feel lucky that they're women I've gotten to know. And then there's the women that I don't, that I'm like, I want to go meet you. You seem amazing. But yeah, so just a thanks.
Oh,
for doing.
thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. Well, originally I started the podcast just, people ask me to mentor them. I was like, well, I can offer my personal experience, but might as well
Yeah,
collect all these amazing women's life stories so they can listen to more
yeah,
stories and learn from those. But I personally have a lot of fun
yeah.
doing this
That's so
podcast.
awesome.
Just got to ask questions, and me, I'm a little bit awkward when I chit chat with people, but now I have an excuse. Sorry, I want to interview you in my podcast. I got to ask also questions.
It's
Yeah.
good. You leaned into your strengths. That's good. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope to talk soon, and maybe I'll come out to Vegas for another just fun climbing trip. Get to go
For
climbing.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.